Good evening, this is Sunday Express. Now, statistics estimate that 200 million women and girls across the world have undergone genital mutilation and that 3 million girls are at risk of undergoing this procedure. Stakeholders are at work trying to eradicate this, retrogressive cultural practice. But then what are we doing to restore the dignity of the victims who have already gone through the cut? And that's where reconstructive surgery come into play. And tonight we have none other than Dr. Abdullahi Aden, a consultant plastic and reconstructive surgeon in studio with us. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you very much.
First things first, Ramadan Kareem.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Now, to set the ball rolling, when you talk about reconstructive surgery, what does it entail, especially for FGM victims or those who've gone through the process?
Well, reconstructive surgery entails an attempt to sort of bring back tissues that will have semblance to the way they were before the cut. But further than that, it adds value in terms of functionality. So it's both the function and form, bringing back both the function and form of the external genitalia for those who have undergone through the cut. So that's what it entails, and we do a lot of that nowadays, and it's helping a lot of women. And we do not intend to substitute reconstructive surgery to prevention.
Okay, so prevention comes first.
Absolutely.
Reconstructive comes at the tail end.
At the tail end, yeah.
Now, is every woman or girl who has undergone the cut eligible for reconstructive surgery? If not, then what is the criteria used?
That's a valid question. Not all women are candidates for this kind of help. Some have undergone type 1. Type 1 and type 2 are the most common one. If I might just quickly go through it, type 1 is just cutting up a bit of the clitoris without necessarily cutting the labia, that's the lips. And then type 2 is maybe cutting the whole of the clitoris and the labias. And then type 3 is sealing it, the way they sort of close it up and stitch it up. And type 4 is now, it's not the severe form, but type 4 is the piercing and putting, pricking and all that stuff. So basically the most common one is type 1 and type 2. That encompasses about 90% of the various people that we see. Type 3 is about 10% and is practiced by certain communities. Now, coming back to your question, who feels to have, who among the women should have these surgeries? If you have type 1 and you're a psychologically strong person and your sexual intimacy is pretty much okay, you might not need it. You might actually not need it. You don't have keloids or any complication of it. You might not need it. But if it's bothering you, then there's help. So type 2 is the one which we normally operate on type 3. And those ones usually we try to do what's called clitoral restorative surgery. We don't want to call it clitoral surgery, clitoral restorative surgery, which means we try to bring out, the clitoris is about 10, 12 centimeters. The bulk, the length of the stem is hidden down there. So there's a large scar, there's a very long scar just above the urethra. It's about 10 centimeters, sometimes 5 centimeters. So we go through that scar tissue and try to bring out the stem or the body of the clitoris and to replace what was cut. What usually the traditional fellows do is they cut what is visible. So we try to open it up, cleverly try to bring out what is remaining and replace back to sort of assemble the way it looked like. So that's the reconstructive bit. The functionality bit is to restore a sense of feelings, of intimacy. And we have data supporting that. And it's through this data that encourages us to continue these kind of surgeries.
Now, you've mentioned something that is very crucial. While we're still doing reconstructive surgery on the physical aspect, there's also a lot of psychological reconstruction, so to speak. So those who are eligible for this kind of surgery, do they also benefit from psychological support while they're going through the procedure?
Oh, yeah, that was an oversight. The other people who qualify for this is somebody who has a lot of psychological problem. what we call post-traumatic stress distress. Almost all the patients that we see, or my colleagues see, almost all of them, the number one complaint is we feel incomplete as women.
Okay.
And that supersedes all other complaints. The first complaint is I feel incomplete as a woman, not even anything else.
So it actually takes away a part of your essence.
Absolutely, yeah, it does take away a part of that feeling of being a complete woman. And lack of confidence, lack of dignity, you feel that you're not complete, you don't have the sense of confidence, you feel that you're not up to it with respect to your relationship with your husband or your partner, and that is the main complaint, if you look at all the list. The other lists are things like, pain during intercourse. A lot of them do have that. The other, of course, they come late, so all the problems with really is late complications of FGM. So things like keloids, some of them have got keloids, that's hardening of the tissues and growth of the tissues. Pain during intercourse. Some of them have got pain during menses, and some of them do not. The new ones who have just got married are not able to, have intimacy with their partners, and we are forced to sort of de-infibulate, to open it up, what we call de-infibulation, because type 3 is infibulation, when they try to attempt to seal it. So the other reasons are cysts. Some of them have got as big cysts, as big as the fist of my hand here. And those are the ones that really take about 3-4 hours of surgery. You try to meticulously dissect the tissues and remove the cyst to ensure that you don't remove any clitoral tissues. So the complications are late. Those ones who come to us are people with late complications. The early complications happen at the village level or wherever it's been cut. Infections, blood loss, anemia, infections, things like some of them even die, because you've heard of cases of FGM, people die in the villages, and those are just the reported ones. We don't know those ones who have not been reported, how many have died.
But then the question is, Daktari, when you look at the statistics, as you said, because we're really bordering our conversation on statistics, it indicates that FGM happens especially to a majority who are underage, and those who would refer to as mature women. Do we have a timeline in which one can actually be eligible for reconstructive surgery?
Reconstructive surgery is advised to anybody who has attained the age of consent. Legally, that's so it doesn't
18. Really matter if I'm 15,
it doesn't
16
really matter.
or 30.
We wouldn't want to, do surgery, at least for now. That's how we work on. The age of consent is 18, and any woman who comes for help will be operated. And that's basically the answer to your question.
So what is the success rate of this reconstructive surgery? Have you had cases where it really doesn't, fit the client's profile?
We have had cases of severe FGM where they actually remove the entire thing, and the only thing where you leave is just the opening, the external genitalia.
So what happens in such a case?
We don't do anything, but we look for any tissues, any nerve tissue that might remain there. And try to bring that out and try to improve her self-esteem. But we might not achieve the desired function and form that we do want. But we do create sometimes, we do create the labia minora by getting flaps, skin tissues around the genital area to mimic or to simulate the original one. Those ones, yes, we have difficulty in that, Fortunately, they're not so common. And then, of course, we've got the cysts. Those ones require surgery, whether they always come. And sometimes, recently, I had a lady who had a huge cyst, almost like a rod. And she was getting married, and the husband said, you're not a woman. And the marriage ended there. So we've got this quite a number, and I believe they're quite common in the villages, if you trickle down and go down to the villages. Unfortunately, we need to go more to the villages to diagnose some of these cases. So yes, there are some who don't, who we may not help, but we try. We really try.
Now, government has really been working at, trying to eradicate this vice. We are not talking about it in 2024, but we have been talking about it for years now. From where you sit within that value chain, what does the curve look like? Are we getting ahead of this vice, or are we having other emerging issues that are supporting this
So
vice?
let's go to the numbers. There was a study which was done by BBC the other day, I read it, through UNFPA and other organizations, WHO and all that. They're saying that the percentage of reduction of FGM in our country was from 38% to 15%. Based on my practice locally, anecdotally, I would put a question mark on that, on those numbers.
Okay.
I think it's way more. It's probably 50%. But we have an anti-FGM board, and I'm sure they're doing a good job in trying to get the real numbers. I personally would not take those numbers correctly. So the numbers are going down, but they're not going down as much as we would like it to be. You know, we would want this thing to be eradicated. There's absolutely no usefulness in FGM, completely.
So what do you think is actually fueling this? Because we have seen emerging issues where we're having parents who are sending over the children from all the way from abroad, coming to various parts of the country where this particular retrogressive cultural practice is ongoing. I mean, what's really fueling this? Why are we gravitating towards FGM?
Regina, if you look at this, culture is goes almost to the DNA of a community. It's so difficult to eradicate culture.
Okay.
It's ingrained in people's mind, and it is their depth. It's been there for centuries, and the only way is time. Time will remove a culture. It has to go with time. It has no value at all. There's no religion that advocates for female genital mutilation. There's this anecdotal feeling that it's only Muslims who do it, but you and I know very well that in Kenya, the Maasais do it, the Somalis do it. The Samburus do it, the Kikuyus do it. In my studies, almost 50% of the ladies who come to me are from Muranga and from Embu. Embu is massive. It's about 80%.
So it has no, it is not within a demographic.
It's not within a demographic or ethnic or religious connotation. So what happens is, it's so difficult for it to go out. It's a cultural thing, and I believe it started in Egypt, came through the Congo Belt, came to our area, but it's still practiced in West Africa and in some parts of Asia.
So there's some advocates who are saying that for us to actually do away with this particular vice, as you've said, rightfully put, it's anchored on culture, that we need to introduce an alternative rite of passage.
Yes, and there have been attempts to do that, albeit in a wrong way. You've heard of medicalization of FGM.
Yes.
It doesn't really help. It doesn't really help because still, after you do medicalization, later the ladies will still come for surgery. They are affected. They have got the post-traumatic stress and all that. So it doesn't. The only bit that it might help is maybe it's done in a sterile environment, but it should not be advocated. It doesn't help. Data has shown that it does not help at all. So I wouldn't say there's any. The Muslims have a tradition whereby you just make a prick, just to sort of look like you've done something, just like the malarial prick where you just make a prick. That might work, you know, really it does the purpose. But the rite of passage from a young child to a woman, the masters are introducing, you know, systems whereby they kind of give them a different dress or something so that it shows symbolically that now you've become a woman. That is working, and it should be encouraged. But anything else, it's going to take quite a bit of time. The government needs to fund counties which like Embu. You know, Embu is some area that I've never had, but I can tell you there's a huge number of women in Embu, Runyenjes area, and Meru area with these kind of things. And even in Muranga, people don't seem to talk about the Kikuyu community. The Kikuyu community, they still do practice FGM, and it's very unfortunate that people don't seem to know that, or the government doesn't seem to, you know that.
I hope the authorities have had that. Now, as we work towards a close, the question is also when we're seeking medical services, the question is how accessible are these services? How affordable are they? Under the current structure, can I walk into a hospital using my NHIF card and still get this reconstructive surgery service?
When I introduced this particular surgery, I want to humbly say that I introduced this surgery in this country. I was the first one. We started at Mama Lucy Hospital. We operated 6. That was 2017. And the purpose was capacity building. And we trained a couple of doctors, mainly plastic surgeons as well as obstetricians, to do this. So we've got about 10 to 15 doctors who are competently able to do this kind of reconstructive surgery. We want to, you know, sort of increase the number.
So access is there?
Access is there, but our
affordability.
Capacity and affordability. So we're trying to have counties train as many surgeons as possible to go to the counties rampant with this problem so that they can help reduce. NHIF, there's no reason why in our country NHIF should decline to cover this. And they serve the purpose. The work is to serve the community, so they must approve it. Yeah, so yeah.
So as we come to a close, given that this month, when you talk about March, we're talking about the women agenda. You're a public surgeon and you're doing reconstructive surgery, especially to post-FGM victims. Do you think that in the near future we'll be able to get rid of this retrogressive process?
In my lifetime, we might not get rid of it.
Okay.
But there's definitely
in your lifetime? Oh my
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because of the issue of culture. It's a big problem. But it has to start somewhere. A long journey, you have to start with a single step. Okay. I have a feeling that 50, 70, 100 years from now, we might completely get rid of this thing.
100 years.
Reconstructive surgery is not the option. It's education and all that. However, we've seen education defying tradition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very well said. That has been none other than Dr. Abdullahi Adan, a consultant plastic and reconstructive surgery surgeon there, giving his voice in regard to matters of restoring the dignity of victims who have undergone FGM. The statistics may look grim, but we are on the right path. If you and I work, we're talking about private sector as well as government. You have been watching Sunday Express. I'm Regina Manyara. I wish you a pleasant evening ahead and a great start to the week.